We appreciate everyone taking some time out of their busy schedules to spend a few minutes with us this afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and start things off. I want to first of all just give a very brief introduction to FLIR for any of those who are not familiar with our company. We are the world's largest producer of infrared cameras of all sorts of varieties, and we're going to talk about two of them today. Obviously, we're very heavily vested in the security business, especially as it pertains to thermal cameras. And we also make automation cameras that are fixed mounted, continuous monitoring, with some really great and exciting applications for that as well. So before I steal Jake and Neil's thunder, I'll let them talk about the applications. But I wanted to just do some quick introductions for our team, so that you kind of know who you're talking to and what some of our roles are. So Jake Sigmund is on the call. He is the channel partner manager for FLIR over automation. He runs our automation business in the US. And we look at automation as cameras, like I said, that can be fixed mounted, that are very precise for temperature measurement, wonderful for continuously monitoring critical assets and early fire detection. Some really neat applications with that. Jake is an engineer. He's a technical specialist. He is there for sales support, training, different things like that. Neil Roberts is also on the call with us. Neil is the West Region Sales Director for our security products. He covers he covers California, actually, all of California, Hawaii, Northern Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and manages the security and enterprise sales and opportunities. And of course, he's there for sales support and that as well. And then I am the channel partner manager for our security products. So I'm the ADI account manager. And my job is to help with pricing and load sheets and data that is needed kind of on the back end of things to make sure you guys have the information you need. New product introductions, sales promotion, marketing, contracts, those types of things. So that's who's on the call. And we're just very excited to be with you for a few minutes. I also wanted to show you a coverage map of our security sales team. So we've got folks like Neil spread throughout the country. And here are our names and phone numbers and email and that kind of stuff where you can reach out and get a hold of these people. If you have an opportunity, reach out to our sales team. They can support you through that. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to pass it on to Neil Roberts, who's going to talk a little bit about perimeter security. Neil.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Hello, everyone. Yeah, just to add a little bit, I'm kind of a seasoned veteran. I've been in the security industry for goodness, close to 37 years. I've been with FLIR through an acquisition, approaching 9 years. And so I come with a lot of background in a lot of our security products, not only in the thermal imaging, but also the VISABLE and the video management software platforms that we offer. I noticed on the map, I do have Arizona as well, and Southern Nevada, just for your information, and then we can share our complete contacts later. So yeah, I'm excited to have the opportunity to chat with you today about specifically kind of a 30,000-foot view of perimeter security, and often in the area that you might see in specifications or your integrators requesting what we call PIDs, which is perimeter intrusion detection solutions. So let's go to the next slide. So as we click the corners in the perimeter security approach, basically at FLIR, we want to assure that we can provide the overall most cost-effective technological solution that covers the corners. And when I say covers the corners, control the corners, and that's when you're looking at, you know, the perimeter outside of the protected area, the security inside the protected area, and how that correlates with all the other systems that might be involved in, say, a outdoor utility substation, as an example. So we control the corners, thus we lower the costs of the project by having a complete end-to-end solution. The sales team, along with our sales engineers, we identify the needs to help your business provide the best accurate quotes to the integrators. And as Brent said earlier, you know, 50 years of brand recognition and innovation. FLIR is the trusted partner and the leader in this industry. And today I'll talk a little bit about, you know, how we go to market and how a solution would look in a, say, an outdoor utility substation. Okay. Next slide. So one of the areas that before you get involved in providing the solution as far as the cameras and the software and the integrations is that North America power utilities business is highly regulated. And that's a good thing for FLIR because we, again, cover the corners. So a highly regulatory type requirements like NERC, FERC, SIP 14 as examples, or NRC Part 73.55. These are all part of regulatory guidance to provide the overall security of, say, an electrical substation for the threat of copper and metals theft. It could be the shooting of the transformers that we saw at the Metcalf facility at PG&E many years ago. Basically, anything that can disturb the substation obviously has a huge impact to us as consumers. So we work with third-party companies, partners like Spotter RF, as an example, with radar, embedded logics with software enhancing the asset monitoring by mobile devices. We work with, you know, third-party video management systems other than our own in these solutions. So we have a team of experts that understand these regulatory guidelines to better provide the solutions to meet these opportunities. Okay, next slide. So perimeter technology systems. So when you're looking at kind of the covering the corners, you would have maybe detection with radar if it's a huge open area. Maybe it's an airport, and you know the airport has a fence around it, but on the other side of the fence is a lot of open area that could be subject to somebody trying to penetrate into the airport grounds. So you might have radar as an example. You know, we have ground-based radar at FLIR, but again, it could be working with one of our partners like Spotter RF for radar coverage. Accessing or assessing the information. So we'll talk later about our multi-camera technologies, the pan, tilt, zoom cameras that we have available that will take information from the radar and slew the Q, which is a kind of a Department of Defense terminology, to track the person. And then on the response side, the command and control software. You know, we offer at FLIR our Latitude video management system as a response command control system. We also have Chameleon, which is a product that we offer. But it could very well be a third-party VMS, which all of our cameras are listed with through ONVIF or plug-in protocols. Next slide. So when you're looking at the detection side and the pan-tilt zoom capabilities, here's an illustration of our PTHD. It is a thermal core as well as a visible image 1080 camera. Therefore, the operator that's getting the alarm condition can actually toggle back and forth and see the thermal image as well as the visible image to find where the problem is, where the intruder might be, and be able to provide a response with maybe the police efforts or the local security personnel at, say, that airport or utility substation. Okay, next slide. So here's an example of when our camera detects, our fixed camera detects a person trespassing, and our fixed cameras have built-in analytics for human and vehicle detection. So here we have the camera detecting a person walking in the field of view of maybe trespassing, and the PTZ camera actually locks in on the individual and is tracking that person as they walk out of one area into the next, providing a complete autonomous control solution for tracking individuals. Okay, next slide, please. As well, on the visible, we have it on the thermal. So, here, the thermal image works extremely well for analytic detection, especially at a long range. So while we track in thermal, we can actually also view that person in the visible light and have a good, solid detection of a person trespassing within the premises. Next slide, please. So perimeter detection, again, as you look at the big perimeter around, say, electrical substation, you might use radar, and radar would be fixed, located on a pole inside the protected space, and looking outward for movement of maybe humans or vehicles. And as a person is approaching the substation, like the person in the blue dot, then the fixed cameras that are located on the corners that overlap to create a virtual fence line will detect that person, and then the slew to queue to the pan-tilt camera, PTZ camera, will then track, lock on, and provide that meaningful information automated back to the control center, so the control post can take the next action as far as what to do. And again, all this is recorded on the video management system for forensic purposes and playback as needed. So please hit the enter button. So it's a multi-layered approach. It's fully automated. It's a complete end-to-end solution with FLIR products. Again, 50 years in this industry and proven with the technology, and extremely reliable with low false alarms, low false alarm rates associated with our superior analytics that are in the fixed cameras, as well as the analytics for tracking in our cameras. Next slide. So again, this is kind of a overview automation. You can hit enter and it will kind of give you again that feeling of the radar picking up, the outward area in the layer 1A approach. And then as you get closer to the substation, you have the layer 1B, and then layer 2 would then be the PTZ camera following the intruder throughout the space. We also have cameras that are made specifically for smaller space detection. And one is our DH390 high definition, which is a dual purpose thermal, and visible camera with a built-in alarm feature that will light a white light as a deterrent, as well as create white light within the space, so the 1080 is full color. So again, a full multi-layered threat detection solution, all FLIR technology, all integrated together to provide a single end-to-end solution for our integrators. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a busy slide, but it kind of shows kind of the illustration of command and control platform. Again, we offer our own FLIR United Video Management System, Latitude as an example, as well as our Chameleon. But when you're pulling all of this together, we have the ability with our Chameleon technical server to bring in perimeter fence buried cable microwave inputs, drone detection and interaction, video analytics, both radar units and visible thermal cameras, and all that comes into a single control command center. And then we can do things like information on SQL databases. We can provide client workstations, mobile apps, and do a lot of interactive I/O information for the alarm conditions. Maybe throwing up flood lamps or lights. Maybe offering some other integration with third-party systems for even greater security purposes. But again, we have the solutions, and this is kind of the glue, if you will, the video management system that ties it all together. And I have to reinforce the fact that even though we may not get the VMS on every project, all of our camera technology, both visible and thermal, is a standard open ONVIF protocol. So many of our customers will use a Genetec system as the VMS, or maybe it's a Milestone, or maybe it's a Vigilon, or whomever. We are open to third-party VMS solutions if it's not FLIR that's being specified. Next slide, please. So when we look at our thermal portfolio, and today we're just going to talk around the thermal side, we start with the Triton at the very top. That is used predominantly for assessing the area, as well as the visual capture of both the thermal and visible images. So, you know, a power plant, a utility, a bridge, an airport, you will often see our pan-tilt series HD cameras used for slew to queue and for assessing the areas. You'll see our F-series ID, radiometric cameras used in the utility substations for not only looking at the heat buildup, say on a transformer, but also adding analytics for the security side. And our A310 PTs, again, slew to queue, quick reference, identifying issues with security, or maybe identifying issues with heat buildup on transformers or overhead power lines. We offer those solutions, and that family is called Triton. Then when you get into around the perimeter itself, creating that virtual trespass line around the fence line of the utility substation. Then we have the series of the fixed bullet thermal cameras with or without analytics. The FC series, which allows even greater distance and greater resolution for coverage for both analytics, or you can use a third-party analytics. The FCR, and then our newly released DX series, which is a combination dome with both visible 4K and thermal to be able to have the highest quality visible image viewing and recording, as well as our thermal product to do the assessment in the trespasser and slew to queue. And then the Ceros family, really looking more inward at maybe a boat ramps, you know, smaller application, commercial applications. Maybe it's a construction site that's under that's going, building some hotels or building, apartments, you will see these type of cameras used to be able to assess, detect, and provide information for maybe a remote guarding company to view and talk down to the area as trespassers are being detected. So we, again, cover the corners. We have a full line of thermal cameras as well as visible cameras. But again, we're your trusted partner when it comes to analytics and thermal detection and the ability to assess the information and record it. Next slide, please. So to pull all this together, not only do we have the sales organization that was identified on the map, we have pre-sales engineer folks that are located. I'm happy to have two in the West, JJ in Northern California and Danny Vallejo in Southern California. And they are true experts that can do presentations, demos, review the specs that come out in the RFP, and help provide the bill of materials to, provide a solid quote for you to pass on to your integrators for a complete end-to-end solution. And then post-sales, we have a complete technical group that supports the product and the continuing support. If it's say our Latitude software, we have software support agreements that continues to support and upgrade the software as we come out with new versions. So again, identify the opportunities. We have the products that put into the quote through the resources that we have, both sales and pre-sales, and then we support the integrator through the process of installing as well as post-support. Next slide, please. So here I will let Jake take it from here, and thank you for your attention and hope to have some questions later. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Can everyone hear me just before we get started? Neil?
Yes. Gotcha.
Awesome. Awesome. That was a great presentation on PIPs, on perimeter intrusion protection. Is that correct?
Yep.
Just one more reminder. Awesome. And thanks, Brent, for the introduction. Unlike the security branch, the automation branch, FLIR does not make in-house software. So we do rely on integrators and software developers, which I believe is what most of ADI's customers are, to develop or work with the cameras for their functionality. However, there are quite a few onboard features within these products that make integration and implementation in the applications I'm going to go over much easier. So go ahead and jump to the next slide. Brent touched on this earlier in the presentation, but the two applications that are really big for the automation sector, and these are the products that ADI has access to, are early fire detection and what we like to call critical asset monitoring. You've probably also heard it called condition monitoring or predictive maintenance, but automating it. So I'm going to go over early fire detection first and then get into those aspects. So early fire detection, I mean, it's very straightforward. It's what it means: catch the fire before it occurs, right? And that's to save money, peace of mind, right? You know that your system is protected, your warehouse, your assets, whatever it may be. It's rapid notification. So as soon as you see a heat event, right, whether it's battery cells or a trash plant, the camera is going to notify you when something out of the ordinary occurs. And it increases your security, right? Reduce liability. You can tell your customers, or maybe someone's leasing a service from you, that you have these systems in place and that you will be watching their assets for financial security. Because a fire, right, one, you're going to lose everything in the building. You might have fines from the Environmental Protection Agency. Your building's going to burn down. You might have to have losses in operation for a while the aftermath of the fire is cleaned up. So there's substantial financial security in early fire detection, and there's damage control. If there is a fire, if it does occur, at least you catch it early and it doesn't get out of control. So go ahead and go to the next slide. This is kind of what a system would look like, right? So you mount a fixed thermal camera, just like a security camera, but slightly different operation. So instead of looking for humans and vehicles for perimeter intrusion, right, you're looking for heat events. So the camera is going to maybe pan and tilt, maybe it's going to be fixed, but it's going to look over the whole area for whatever heat event you program it to do. So you could do something simple like a threshold. You could say, hey, I'm looking at coal. Coal is normally 200 degrees. If any portion of this is above 300, I want an alarm. If it's above 300 for 5 seconds, I want another alarm. So that's kind of what the assessment category is. You can do simple threshold analysis, or you can do really complicated analysis, like, is the heat event moving? So if you say anything over 300 is a trigger, but that target is moving throughout the frame, maybe it's just a muffler off of a vehicle, right? So you ignore the heat event because it's actually moving across the frame and it's not growing. So you have to actually use that data to assess and determine, do we need to respond, right? Do we need to call 911? Do we need to call the fire engine? Or is there a local operator? Can I just notify an operator, hey, there's a heat event in section 4. Can you bring a fire extinguisher and make sure that it doesn't explode into a fire? Or in some cases, some of our partners have developed fire suppression systems. So you can actually find the heat event and automatically look at it and actually put it out remotely. So you don't have to call 911, fire engine, or an operator. So go ahead and go to the next slide. Here's a video, see if we can get this to play. There you go. Click it one more time. Awesome. So this is actually one of ADI's partners. It's been one of ADI's partners for a while, but they are FLIR, and you can see their system found it, and it's in a waste yard. So it caught very early and the fire started, but they have the suppression system. So FLIR's specialty is pairing our cameras with a remote and remotely operated fire suppression system. So instead of the entire place burning down, because what caught fire is extremely flammable and quick, right? They can find the heat event and then put it out before it spreads to the rest of the facility. And that's what we're seeing here. So we can go ahead. That's essentially the gist. See, it's very flammable what they're putting out. So it exploded very quickly. Oh, nope. Yep, just next slide. I think you can arrow. If you press the side arrow on your keyboard. Awesome. So that's early fire detection. One thing to keep in mind when you're selling into those applications is that you have access to those products. And the next is critical asset monitoring. So I like to think of a critical asset as a piece of equipment that is critical to a procedure. So a lot of people, when they hear critical asset, they think really expensive equipment like transformers, right? Transformer costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. So why not monitor it to make sure it doesn't break? Well, critical asset could also be something small like a bearing or a motor or a pump, right? Maybe it's just a $500 motor, but the motor is responsible for a process in a manufacturing plant. So let's say you manufacture popsicles, right? Okay, popsicles. Maybe the manufacturing plant manufactures 500,000 popsicles a day. And if the single motor, which is $500, that runs the conveyor belt goes out, all of a sudden you can't run the process because one section of the entire manufacturing process is down. The section where the motor drags the popsicles to packaging, and now you can't package the popsicles. So in this instance, right, the critical asset is actually the motor, and it's a cheap piece of equipment. So when you think of critical asset monitoring, really think of any type of equipment that could prevent a company from manufacturing or getting produce, and they lose significantly more money than they would monitoring the system. So as you know, infrared cameras are expensive, but if their value outweighs the cost of operation, then it can be used anywhere. So if we look at these bullet points, right, predictive maintenance, and that can be on that motor, it can be on a transformer, it can be on a battery bank, any type of equipment. Assurance, right? So now you're looking at trends. You can say, hey, typically this is what the heat signature of the device looks like, but now it's warming up more than it used to. Maybe we need to look at replacing it. So equipment understanding and assurance kind of go hand in hand. You can actually day after day monitor and record how a piece of equipment operates throughout its lifespan and understand, all right, now that I have all this data, is this abnormal or is it normal? And by doing that, reduce downtime, reduce outages, reduce failure, and maximize that company's profit. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So if we look at this as a process, right, the first is using a thermal camera to look at a piece of equipment. So right here, we're looking at two motors that govern a process. I think they pump fluid through a system in this particular, it might be oil application, but the one on the right is very cool. The one on the left, right, has a clog in the system, so the motor's actually overworking itself. And one, fluid's not flowing like it should be, and two, the motor is going to break. So not only are they losing profitability, but they're going to be down. One of their lines is going to be down. So if you take that data back, right, you assess and you say, okay, motor one, we're doing a delta comparison in this case. Motor one is around 70 degrees Fahrenheit and motor two has a hot spot of 124 degrees Fahrenheit. Is it time to replace this equipment? How long has this been occurring? Is it recent or is it been like this the whole time, right? Now, we can judge whether this motor needs to be replaced. And that's kind of the concept behind condition monitoring. You'll hear it, predictive maintenance, or critical asset monitoring. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So here's a little video. It's in the electronics, power utilities. Another solution with some software. I'll just describe what's going on. So in this instance, this maintenance personnel actually has access, a phone app, to a thermal camera that FLIR is monitoring some of the connections. And some of these connections, it's for control, are very important. And his phone notified him, well, it was very quick. His phone notified him that one of the connections was hotter than the other, and it was not a typical occurrence. So he actually went to the plant, checked out where the connection was. He had data analytics, as you saw, they popped up there for a few seconds and said, this is the occurrence, this is how much hotter it is than the other one, this is the frequency it occurs, go ahead and check that out. So that's kind of the idea behind the monitoring. So if you want to jump to the next slide. And again, just for clarification, FLIR does not develop the software, but there are partners you can pair with to provide the software, right? There's installers, there's ways to sell the product itself and get others involved. And I'd be happy to help you guys in that process. Another cool thing, something Neil touched on and Pip, is that both our automation and our security products now both have thermal and visible. And there's a different value for that in automation, right? So if you're doing predictive maintenance, you probably know what you're looking at, right? This is a turbine. It's very clear on the right and left image. But maybe it's a transformer and you want to read the label. Which transformer is it, right? You can't actually read text in the thermal realm. So being able to jump to the visible realm and see, oh, that's a 148 kV transformer, it's transformer 2. Now you can actually diagnose what it is remotely and plan accordingly. Something you wouldn't be able to do with just the thermal image. So if we jump to the next slide, here's just a list of things that you can think about, right? Critical asset monitoring and early fire detection. Some of the equipment that you'd think of, transformers, turbines. I'll let you guys read that here for a second. Early fire detection, also a very large and growing industry. You can think, right, battery storage. That is an up and coming industry, and lithium right now, which is the prime chemical used for energy storage, is highly flammable. Generation plants, right? Think they're turbines. Their turbines can actually overheat and catch fire. But those are some other early fire detection, right? Plants, facilities for storage that have a lot of valuable assets inside. You want to prevent a fire, maybe a chemical plant, right? And eventually, as infrared cost does come down, I do hope to see this implemented in forestry, but that's to be determined. Awesome. So here's the product line. These are all available through ADI currently, and there will be some more. To come is the A50 and the A70, not currently pictured, 2021. We'll probably have another webinar when those come out. But I'm sure all of you are aware of the A400 and the 700, which are used for elevated skin temperature right now. They can also be used for the two processes we described. Then we got the A310F. This is an outdoor camera. So this is the best outdoor enclosure FLIR has to offer. There are third parties that offer cooled or dust purge enclosures, but this is our best offering. Within that is the A310, which can be used for indoor processes, and then the least expensive variant, which is around $1,500 with accessories, and really good for close proximity, 5 to 10 feet away, tight, limited space applications, is the AX8. So if we think of a complete solution, right, you want to do your research. What is the application? What are you looking at? How far away is the object? How many objects do we need to look at? What is the material? There is quite a bit of questions and vetting of the application before you can actually determine, is an automated solution the best solution? So keep that in mind. It's not cut and paste. I know what's the solution. Then select your camera. Select it based on cost, specifications, lead time, whatever you need. And then think about, who are you going to get involved to do the software, right? ADI is not going to do the software. Maybe your partner or the customer reaching out to you guys is going to do the software, but make sure you have that piece, because that's the final piece and the most important piece, is having someone to do the software. Something I want to touch on, because this has been a big selling part for ADI lately, elevated skin temperature. Some new updates in the realm of FLIR and elevated skin temperature. So we're jumping topics here. We are releasing a FLIR kiosk. So what that consists of is a tablet, a FLIR elevated skin temperature camera, in a consolidated, fully automated package. And this is what it will look like. So this is our suite in our Tabby office, and they're trying it out here. If we jump to the next slide. Some more pictures of it, right? It'll be automated. It'll tell you whether you're clear, you're too warm. There will be some customizable features, but those have not been released yet, and it's not quite ready to be sold, but it will be quite quickly. Some more pictures here. It does have some new software updates. So inner canthus, I'm sure all of you know, is the best place to measure temperature. It's going to be doing that in the thermal realm. So this is the first iteration of software where, instead of using a visible camera to find the canthus, which has its limitations and flaws, it actually only uses the thermal camera to get and pull that measurement. So this should be the most accurate, the most reliable, and the most consistent EST system that we have sold to date. And it actually meets some of these requirements that we haven't currently met in the past, which is ISO 13154. Additionally, it will have a cool new technology to integrate with access control systems, some of the newer ones, maybe not so much the older ones. But in the past, we haven't tied digital outputs or alarming into Screen-Est. I'm sure you guys are aware of what Screen-Est is, but this new iteration will use the digital outputs on the camera with the automated software for control applications. So if you want to do badge screening, it's going to take a little bit of work. It's not going to be plug and play, so to speak, but with a little bit of work using the webhooks or the digital outputs on the camera that are linked to this new automated software, you will be able to have some additional functionality. So those are the part numbers for the Kiosk. 90603 over there on the left and the 85903. Those are the two iterations of the Kiosk, one lower resolution and one higher resolution. The prices are not determined, but I've heard that the lower performance, lower pixel version is going to be around 10K, maybe a little bit more. And then we have our new A-series EST specific cameras. So I know any of you that are on this webinar right now that might have sold automated solutions for EST are using the A400, and it's pretty complicated because there's quite a few parts. What's nice about the A500 EST is all you have to do is order the single part and maybe the software, Screen-Est, and that should cover everything you need. So the A500 and A700, if you are going to be ordering any more EST related stuff, these are what you should transfer to.